Hello friends, how are you? Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of American Washington quarter dollars, where ordinary-looking coins can sometimes hide extraordinary stories. In this video, we're exploring the top 3 coins: the 1966 quarter with no mint mark, the 1973D, and the 1974D Washington quarter. We'll uncover their history, mint marks, condition, unusual color shades, and the factors that can make certain examples highly desirable to collectors. So before you spend that old, dirty quarter, take a closer look. You might be holding a surprisingly valuable piece of American coin history. First up, our 1966 Washington quarter. First coin: 1966 Washington quarter, no mint mark. Is it worth millions? The truth about its value today. Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today we are diving into the fascinating world of American coin collecting, and the coin on our table is a 1966 Washington quarter with no mint mark. At first glance, this quarter may look like an ordinary old coin, perhaps dirty, dark, scratched, or heavily circulated. But there is something important you need to understand before you throw it into a spending pile or sell it for a few cents. The 1966 quarter comes from one of the most interesting transition periods in United States coin history, when America was changing the metal used in its everyday coins. And that history is exactly what makes this coin worth examining carefully. Now let us clear up the biggest mystery immediately. If your 1966 Washington quarter has no mint mark, that does not automatically mean it is a rare error. In fact, 1966 quarters were intentionally produced without mint marks under the mint mark policy of the period. So seeing no letter next to Washington's neck is normal for this date. That little detail is extremely important because many people see an old quarter with no mint mark and immediately assume they have discovered a $1 million treasure. The reality is more interesting. The ordinary 1966 quarter is generally worth around its face value when circulated, while exceptionally preserved examples and genuine mint errors can bring substantially higher collector prices. The story behind this quarter begins with America's coinage crisis of the 1960s. Before 1965, Washington quarters were made from 90% silver. But rising silver prices and heavy public hoarding created enormous pressure on the nation's coin supply. The United States moved to a copper-nickel clad composition for circulating quarters beginning in 1965. By 1966, the new composition was firmly established. That means a normal 1966 Washington quarter is not a 90% silver quarter. Its composition is copper and nickel, with a copper core, and it weighs approximately 5.67 grams. This is where many online coin value stories become confusing. You may hear someone say, "I found a 1966 silver quarter worth thousands or even millions." But you should never assume that every 1966 quarter contains silver. The ordinary 1966 circulation quarter does not. If you have a normal example, its value comes from its condition, strike quality, varieties, errors, and collector demand, not from a large amount of silver inside the coin. So what about the famous no mint mark? During this period, the mint temporarily removed mint marks from circulating coins. Therefore, the absence of a mint mark on a 1966 quarter is not by itself the jackpot. It is actually part of the history of the coin. This is why collectors should learn the difference between a normal characteristic and a genuine minting error. A missing mint mark can be exciting on some coins, but with a 1966 quarter, no mint mark is expected. Now let's talk about the numbers. More than 821 million 1966 Washington quarters were produced, making the ordinary coin relatively common. That enormous production figure tells us something very important. If you find a worn 1966 quarter in an old jar, drawer, cash register, or collection, you should not automatically expect millions of dollars. Most circulated examples remain close to face value. However, the story changes when we move into extremely high grades or unusual mint-made errors. Imagine you find a 1966 quarter that looks almost untouched. The surfaces are bright, the lettering is sharp, Washington's hair details are strong, and the reverse design shows very little wear. Suddenly, you are no longer looking at an ordinary circulated quarter. You may be looking at a condition rarity. Current price guides show that certified high-grade examples can command significant premiums, although values vary greatly according to grade and the exact specimen. One published estimate currently lists an uncirculated 1966 quarter at around $8.64 or more, while other market guides show substantially higher prices for exceptional certified pieces. And this is where the word condition becomes extremely powerful. Two coins can have exactly the same year, exactly the same design, and exactly the same lack of a mint mark, yet have completely different values. One might have been carried in pockets for decades and be worth only face value. Another might have survived in extraordinary condition and attract serious collectors. The difference is not magic. It is preservation, rarity, certification, and demand. There is another category that can make a 1966 quarter much more interesting: mint errors and unusual varieties. Collectors may look for things such as double design elements, unusual strikes, wrong planchet strikes, or other documented minting abnormalities. But be careful. A scratch, dent, discoloration, damage from a machine, or strange appearance caused by chemicals is not automatically a mint error. A true error generally has evidence that something unusual happened during the manufacturing process. That brings us to the dirty or dark 1966 quarter you may have sitting at home. Perhaps it looks brown, black, reddish, golden, or unusually dull. Do not rush to clean it. Cleaning can damage the original surface and potentially reduce collector appeal. What looks ugly to the average person can sometimes preserve evidence that a collector wants to examine. Instead of using chemicals, polishing cloths, or abrasive materials, leave the coin in its current condition and have it evaluated properly if you believe it may be unusual. Now let's answer the question everybody wants to know. Can a 1966 Washington quarter really be worth millions of dollars? The honest answer is that you should not treat a $1 million claim as the normal value of this coin. A regular 1966 no mint mark quarter is not a $1 million coin. Published market information places ordinary circulated examples around face value, while exceptional high-grade or unusual specimens can be worth considerably more. Some online sources advertise extremely high theoretical figures, but those numbers should never be presented as the guaranteed value of an ordinary 1966 quarter. So if someone tells you, every 1966 quarter without a mint mark is worth millions, be careful. That statement is misleading. The fascinating truth is actually better for collectors because it teaches you what to search for. You are not simply hunting for a date. You are hunting for the right combination of date, condition, strike, variety, error, authenticity, and collector demand. Look closely at the obverse. You should see George Washington facing left with the inscriptions around him. Examine the lettering and the details in Washington's hair and facial features. Then turn the coin over and inspect the eagle, lettering, and overall strike. Look for doubling that appears to be part of the original design rather than damage. Check the edge for unusual metal characteristics. If something looks genuinely different, photograph it clearly and compare it with trusted numismatic references, or have a professional examine it. Another important warning is about the word silver. A 1966 quarter may look silver-colored because its outer layer contains nickel, but that does not make it a silver quarter. The United States had already moved away from the traditional 90% silver composition for regular circulating quarters. This distinction can save you from both overestimating and underestimating your coin. The history of the 1966 quarter is therefore much more valuable than the fantasy of an automatic $1 million payday. It represents America's transition from traditional silver coinage into the modern clad era. It carries the story of a nation dealing with metal shortages, changing economics, coin hoarding, and the need to produce enormous quantities of everyday money. And because it belongs to that transition period, it remains an interesting coin for collectors today. So what should you do if you have one? Don't spend it immediately, but don't assume it will make you a billionaire either. First, identify the coin correctly. Confirm the date. Confirm that it is a genuine 1966 Washington quarter. Examine the condition. Check for legitimate errors or varieties. Avoid cleaning it. And if it appears unusually well preserved or genuinely abnormal, consider professional authentication and grading. The most important lesson is this: an old coin does not become valuable simply because it is old. A missing mint mark does not automatically make it rare. A dirty surface does not automatically mean a valuable error. And a dramatic internet price does not automatically represent what your individual coin is worth. The real treasure is knowing what you have. So the next time you find a 1966 Washington quarter, don't just look at the number 1966. Look deeper, look at the surface, look at the strike, look at the details, look for genuine abnormalities, and most importantly, understand the history behind the coin. Because sometimes the difference between an ordinary quarter and a valuable collectible is not what you can see in 1 second. It is what you discover when you take the time to look carefully. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the 1966 Washington quarter, make sure you stay with Change Your Life, because there are millions of old American coins still circulating, sitting in collections, hiding in drawers, and waiting to be identified. Your next quarter could be ordinary, but the only way to know is to look closely. And remember, never clean a potentially collectible coin, never believe a huge price claim without verification, and never sell a rare-looking coin before you understand exactly what you have. Second coin 1973 D Washington quarter. Is this quarter really worth millions? The shocking truth about its value today. Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today we are diving into another fascinating piece of American coin history, and this time our spotlight is on the 1973 D Washington quarter. If you have ever found one of these quarters in an old collection, a coin jar, a drawer, or even in your pocket change, You may have wondered whether that little D mint mark could make it extremely valuable. Some stories online make ordinary quarters sound like instant fortunes, but today we are going to separate the excitement from reality and explain what actually makes a 1973 D quarter valuable. The first thing you need to know is that the 1973 D Washington quarter is not a traditional 90% silver quarter. By 1973, regular Washington quarters were being produced in the copper-nickel clad composition introduced during the 1960s. The 1973 D quarter has a copper-nickel outer layer and copper core, weighs about 5.67 grams, and was struck at the Denver Mint. More than 232 million were produced there, so the date and the D alone do not make every example rare, but here is where the story becomes interesting. A coin can be common in worn condition and surprisingly valuable in exceptional condition. That is exactly what happens with certain 1973 D quarters. When collectors search for these coins, they are not simply looking for the year and mint mark. They are looking for preservation, sharp strikes, attractive surfaces, high-grade examples, and genuine minting errors. So let's imagine that you find a dirty 1973 D quarter. Maybe it is dark around the edges, maybe it has scratches, maybe the surface looks dull after decades of circulation. Your first reaction might be, this old quarter must be worth a fortune. But don't make that assumption. A circulated 1973 D quarter is generally worth little more than its face value. NGC's current guide places circulated examples roughly in the 30 cents to 85 cents range, while exceptionally preserved examples can bring dramatically higher amounts. Now look at the opposite situation. Imagine you discover a 1973 D quarter that has barely been touched since the day it left the mint. The original surface is still attractive, the lettering is crisp, Washington's hair details are strong, and the reverse has very little evidence of contact. Suddenly, the coin becomes much more interesting. High-grade 1973 D quarters can bring substantial premiums because truly exceptional examples are much harder to find. According to the current PCGS price guide, values for the 1973 D climb as the grade increases. The guide lists approximately $1 around MS60, about $5 to $6 around MS64, roughly $15 to $20 at MS65, around $25 to $50 at MS66, and much higher figures for the finest grades, with an MS68 listing reaching $2,750. These are guide values, not guarantees, and actual market prices depend on the specific coin, certification, eye appeal, and buyer demand. And this is the part that can shock new collectors. The difference between a normal quarter and a premium collector coin can be enormous even though both coins have exactly the same date and mint mark. One could be worth 25 cents, while an extraordinary certified specimen could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. There is also an important distinction between a valuable coin and a valuable error coin. The 1973 D quarter can become especially interesting if it contains a genuine minting error. For example, documented wrong planchet or striking errors can sell for far more than normal examples. Coin World records a 1973 D Washington quarter struck on a dime planchet that sold for hundreds of dollars. That is the kind of unusual manufacturing mistake collectors investigate, not ordinary scratches or damage created after the coin entered circulation. So if your quarter looks strange, don't immediately assume that the strange appearance is an error. A deep scratch could have been caused by machinery or another coin. A flattened area could be damage. A strange color could come from environmental exposure or cleaning chemicals. A genuine mint error needs to be carefully identified and authenticated. And please remember this especially if your 1973 D quarter is dirty. Do not clean it. Do not polish it, scrape it, rub it aggressively, or use household chemicals to make it shine. Cleaning can permanently alter the coin's surface and may destroy the characteristics collectors want to see. If you believe you have something special, preserve the coin exactly as you found it and seek a professional evaluation. Now let's talk about the word that gets everyone's attention: silver. Many people call old-looking quarters silver coins because they have a silver-colored appearance. But appearance alone does not prove silver content. The regular 1973 D Washington quarter is a clad coin, not the traditional 90% silver composition used for Washington quarters, dated 1964 and earlier. This is one of the most important facts you should remember when searching through old quarters. So could your 1973 D quarter be worth millions of dollars? The honest answer is you should not expect millions from a normal 1973 D quarter. There is no reliable basis for saying that every 1973 D quarter is $1 million coin. The realistic market ranges are far more modest for ordinary pieces. While exceptional grades and rare errors can command impressive premiums, that doesn't make the coin boring. In fact, the opposite is true. The 1973 D quarter tells a story about America's changing coinage system. The United States had moved away from traditional silver circulating quarters because economic conditions, and the rising price of silver had made the old composition increasingly difficult to maintain. The clad quarter became the standard, and millions of these coins entered everyday American commerce. Think about where your 1973 D quarter may have traveled. It could have been used at a grocery store during the 1970s. It might have passed through countless hands, traveled across different states, disappeared into a drawer, and eventually found its way into your collection decades later. Every scratch and mark can be part of that journey, but for collectors, those marks also tell us that the coin has circulated. Now take a closer look at the D Mint mark. The D identifies the Denver Mint. On the Washington quarter, it appears on the obverse near Washington's neck area. Don't confuse the presence of the D with proof of rarity. Millions of 1973 D quarters were made. What matters is what else is happening on the coin. Look carefully at Washington's portrait, examine the lettering, study the date, check the rim, turn the coin over and inspect the eagle, stars, and inscriptions. Look for doubling that appears integrated into the design rather than a scratch. Examine the edge for unusual characteristics. If you see something genuinely unusual, take clear photographs and have the coin examined rather than trusting an exaggerated online claim. The condition of the coin is also critical. Collectors use grading systems to describe how well a coin has survived. A heavily circulated quarter can show wear across Washington's hair, cheek, and the reverse design. An uncirculated coin should show no normal circulation wear, although it may still have contact marks from the minting and handling process. The highest grades require exceptional preservation, and that is why very high-grade examples can become much more expensive. Another thing to remember is that a price guide is not the same as a guaranteed selling price. Market prices change. Auction results can be unusually high or low. Certified coins may bring different amounts depending on the grading service, exact grade, eye appeal, provenance, and current collector demand. Even professional price guides can differ. That's why you should never look at one enormous number and assume your coin is automatically worth that amount. If you have a 1973 D quarter in your possession right now, don't panic and don't rush to sell. First, identify it correctly. Is it genuinely dated 1973? Is the D Mint mark present? Is it clad? Has it circulated heavily? Does it have unusual mint-made characteristics? Is it unusually well preserved? Those questions are much more important than simply asking, is this $1 million coin? The real treasure hunt begins when you learn how to recognize the difference between an ordinary coin and an extraordinary one. So the next time you see a 1973 D Washington quarter, don't throw it away just because it looks ordinary. Examine it, learn its history, check its condition, look for genuine errors, and most importantly, don't clean it before you know what you have. The 1973 D quarter may not be the instant billionaire maker that sensational headlines sometimes suggest, but exceptional examples have absolutely earned serious attention from collectors. The documented market shows that condition and genuine errors can transform an ordinary-looking quarter into a much more valuable collectible. And that is the real lesson of coin collecting. The date gets you interested, the mint mark gives you a clue, but condition, rarity, errors, authenticity, and collector demand determine the real story. So check your change, check your old jars, check those forgotten coin collections, but check them with knowledge, not hype. Because sometimes the most interesting coin isn't the one that looks spectacular at first glance. It is the one that makes you stop, look twice, and ask one simple question: what exactly am I holding? Tired and Fannel coin 1974 D Washington quarter. Is this ordinary quarter worth thousands or even millions? The shocking truth. Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today we are looking at another fascinating American coin that could be hiding in an old collection, a coin jar, a drawer, or even your everyday pocket change. Our final coin in this series is the 1974 D Washington quarter, and if you have one, don't rush to spend it before you understand exactly what you are holding. This quarter carries an important chapter of American coin history, and while some dramatic stories claim that an ordinary 1974 D quarter can make you a millionaire overnight, the real story is much more interesting. The date, the Denver Mint mark, the condition, and especially any genuine mint error can make a major difference in what collectors are willing to pay. Let's begin with the most important fact. The 1974 D Washington quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, and the D Mint mark identifies that facility. According to NGC, approximately 353,160,300 examples were produced. The regular coin is made of copper-nickel clad over copper core, weighs about 5.67 grams, and has a reeded edge. That means this is not a traditional 90% silver Washington quarter like the regular quarters dated 1964 and earlier. So why does this coin attract attention? The answer is simple: condition and unusual examples. Worn 1974 D quarter can be extremely common, but a beautifully preserved example can be much more interesting. This is one of the most important lessons in coin collecting. Two coins can have the same date and the same mint mark, yet one may be worth only face value while the other attracts a serious collector premium. If your 1974 D quarter is dirty, scratched, dark, or heavily circulated, don't immediately assume you have discovered a fortune. Current NGC pricing information lists circulated 1974 D quarters around 30 cents to 85 cents, depending on condition. In contrast, pristine uncirculated examples can reach considerably higher prices, with NGC currently showing values reaching approximately $275 for an exceptionally high-grade example. These are guide figures, not guaranteed selling prices, and this is where the hunt becomes exciting. Imagine opening an old box and finding a 1974 D quarter that looks almost untouched. The original surfaces are still attractive, Washington's portrait is sharply defined, the lettering is crisp, and the reverse design has very little evidence of circulation. That coin deserves much more attention than an ordinary worn example. High-grade coins can become valuable because collectors compete for the best preserved pieces, but condition is only part of the story. The next thing you should investigate is whether your quarter has a genuine mint error. This is where a normal quarter can suddenly become much more interesting. A real mint error happens during production, before the coin reaches the public. It is very different from a scratch, dent, stain, corrosion, or damage caused after years of circulation. For example, documented 1974 D quarters with unusual error characteristics have appeared in the marketplace. NGC's auction records include 1974 D examples graded by professional services that brought hundreds of dollars, including error coin auction results such as $810 and $1,320. Those particular results are important because they demonstrate that unusual, authenticated examples can be dramatically different from ordinary circulated coins. However, don't look at those auction numbers and assume your regular quarter is automatically worth $1,000. The exact error, grade, authentication, and circumstances of the sale matter enormously. An ordinary 1974 D quarter and a professionally authenticated error coin are two completely different collectibles. Now let's talk about the word that attracts millions of viewers: silver. A 1974 D quarter can look silver-colored, but that does not mean it contains the traditional silver composition. The normal 1974 D Washington quarter is copper-nickel clad. Its appearance can change because of age, environmental exposure, handling, tunning, or damage, but color alone cannot prove that the coin is silver. This is especially important if your coin is dirty or has an unusual golden, brown, reddish, gray, or dark appearance. Do not grab a polishing cloth and start scrubbing. Do not use vinegar, chemicals, jewelry cleaner, or abrasive materials. Cleaning can permanently damage a coin's surface and destroy characteristics that collectors may want to examine. If you think the coin could be special, preserve it exactly as you found it. Now look carefully at the D mint mark. It is located on the obverse near Washington's neck. The D tells us where the coin was struck, but it does not mean the coin is automatically rare. More than 353 million 1974 D quarters were produced, so the mint mark alone cannot create a huge value. Instead, inspect the entire coin. Look closely at the date. Examine Washington's portrait. Study the lettering and the rim. Turn the quarter over and inspect the eagle, stars, and inscriptions. Check the edge for anything genuinely unusual. If you believe you see doubling, don't immediately call it a valuable doubled die. Post-mint damage and mechanical doubling can look dramatic, but may have little or no premium value. This is why professional grading and authentication can become important. A certified high-grade coin gives buyers confidence about authenticity and condition, but even certification does not magically transform an ordinary coin into a rare one. The coin itself must have the characteristics collectors are seeking. Let's return to the big question. Could a 1974 D Washington quarter be worth millions of dollars today? The honest answer is that you should not expect an ordinary 1974 D quarter to be worth millions. There is no responsible basis for telling viewers that every 1974 D quarter is a $1 million coin. Current published guides show ordinary circulated examples around face value, while high-grade and unusual examples can bring substantially more. That doesn't make your search pointless. In fact, it makes it more exciting because now you know exactly what to look for. You're not searching for a magical date that automatically creates wealth. You're searching for a combination of rarity, condition, error, authenticity, and collector demand. Think about the history behind this quarter. In the early 1970s, Americans were using clad quarters as ordinary money every single day. A quarter could have been used at a gas station, grocery store, vending machine, restaurant, or parking meter. Millions of these coins moved through the economy. Most became scratched and worn. A small number survived in extraordinary condition, and an even smaller number may have experienced unusual events during production. That is why the best examples can become interesting decades later. Collectors are essentially searching through history, trying to find the coins that survived differently from the rest. If you have a 1974 D quarter in your hands right now, don't throw it away and don't sell it based on a sensational headline. First, confirm the date and mint mark, then examine its condition. Ask yourself whether it has heavy circulation wear or whether it looks unusually fresh. Look for legitimate mint-made abnormalities. Check the weight and physical characteristics if you suspect something unusual, but remember that home measurements are only preliminary evidence. And if you discover something genuinely strange, don't clean it. Keep it safe and seek an opinion from a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service. The biggest mistake collectors make is confusing damage with rarity. A coin that has been scratched, bent, stained, chemically altered, or damaged by machinery after leaving the mint may look incredibly unusual, but unusual does not automatically mean valuable. A genuine mint error is valuable because it represents a documented manufacturing mistake that collectors recognize and want. So is the 1974 D Washington quarter worth keeping? Absolutely, especially if you're interested in learning American coin history. Is every 1974 D quarter worth thousands or millions? Absolutely not. The realistic value depends on the exact coin in front of you, and that's what makes coin hunting so exciting. A quarter that looks completely ordinary could deserve a second look. Maybe it is heavily circulated and worth little more than face value. Maybe it is unusually well preserved. Maybe it has an authentic mint error. You won't know until you examine it carefully. So remember this final message. Don't judge a coin only by its date. Don't assume the D mint mark makes it rare. Don't mistake clad metal for silver, and never clean a potentially valuable coin. The 1974 D Washington quarter is a fascinating piece of American history, and exceptional examples have proven that collectors will pay serious money for the right combination of condition and rarity. NGC's current information shows ordinary circulated pieces at modest values, while pristine examples and documented errors can move into much higher price territory. So before you spend that old 1974 D quarter, take one more look. Turn it over, check the details, study the surface, look at the edge. And ask yourself one final question. Could this be an ordinary quarter, or is there something unusual hiding in plain sight? Because in the world of coin collecting, sometimes the biggest discovery starts with something that looks like nothing more than 25 cents.